All right, welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lizak, CMO at BDEX, along with co-host Joshua Morgan, customer advocate at Drift, and of course, David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO. I'm really proud to introduce you to our guest today, Olivia Tsang of Fraction. Thank you so much for being here, Olivia. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name's Olivia. I am the Director of Growth Marketing at Fraction. And a little bit about Fraction, we're a digital platform that provides financial solutions to folks in Washington and the United States and also in Canada. And currently we are helping homeowners access their home equity without a monthly payment. And they can use their hard-earned equity as cash for anything like paying off high-interest debt, starting a business, or investing in a second home for themselves or their kids. And previously, I have been in email marketing since 2014. I've worked in many different industries. I've worked at business intelligence, entertainment, and alongside with a lot of Fortune 500 companies at an ad agency. So I have plenty of experiences in email marketing, but I'm also an expert at performance marketing as well, and digital marketing in general.
That's awesome, Olivia. Thanks for joining us today on our Deconstructing Data podcast. Appreciate the introduction. I think that's really helpful, and it sort of frames our conversation as we want to get into a few specific topics. And I know, Jessie, to start off, you had one topic that you wanted to bring up with Olivia, and that's email and SMS marketing. So let's dive right into that. Jessie, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Yep. Let me change the banner there. So email and SMS marketing. Olivia, these were two topics that I know you submitted. So I think they are top of the list in terms of your expertise. So we always want to add value to our audience in terms of the different guests we're bringing on. These are two things that I definitely love to talk about and can talk hours and hours about email and SMS marketing. I think the big buzzword these days is deliverability in both of those. But what would be, your top tips for B2C marketers in terms of sending a successful email and SMS marketing campaign?
Yeah, so for email marketing, I would say the first thing is really figure out on just making sure that people are opted in to the email. So having that check mark, either if you're in e-commerce, at the shopping cart portion to opt in for marketing, messaging, and communications. That's very important, especially right now. Within the last few years, there's been the GDPR regulations in EU. I would definitely foresee that the regulations in the United States as well is going to catch up, similar to what we have at GDPR at the moment. So I think having that is very important as a first step with email marketing when you're capturing the email of the person that is signing up, just to make sure they know that you're getting the communication ahead of time. And then as far as the content of the email, making sure your open subject line is going to be something that people want to click into or are curious about. So something short and sweet. And as far as the content goes, anything that's relevant to the person that's receiving it. So let's say, for example, as an e-commerce, or you are getting you're selling different products for children's toys, for example, and you have a subset of data that is going to say that that person is a parent. Make sure that you're sending relevant content. And then for Fraction, we send out relevant content to different clients about where they are in the process and also different things about like what they can do with like home ownership and upkeep. So I think having relevant content for deliverability is going to be very important. You want to make sure people are engaging with it so that the deliverability is strong in that regard.
That's a really great point. I think too, one thing that is important, well, marketers, we're typically emailing people who want to be emailed, right? Who've opted in to our different campaigns. And so lucky for us, we are not dealing as much with deliverability problems, but to some extent, we do still need to be cognizant of the technical background of what we have set up with our emails and our domains to make sure that it's not some simple technical thing with like, DKIM or DMARC that is slowing us down, and getting the right IT people involved to make sure that we're properly sending. Do you have any suggestions in regards to any of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different testing toolkits available right now online. I would definitely, if you have limited resources, I would suggest using those. And then just making sure to rigorously test if you're, especially when you're starting out on creating creating the email marketing ecosystem. Definitely test before you send.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was about subject lines, and this came up with Jesse and I this week because I get so many emails, that I consider spam from that are unsolicited, and it seems to me like people are starting to get these crazy ideas to put crazy things in the subject lines to try to get you to open it. And so like there was one that the subject line was the number 3 and then doors. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, that's
interesting.
And it was just somebody trying to sell me something. I don't even remember what it was. Another one was just said Chick-fil-A, and it's like and then in there they're like, whatever, let me buy you some Chick-fil-A for lunch if you'll have a 30-minute phone call with me. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, personally, I just, all these emails I just delete immediately because I just don't like the fact that they're just trying to use some sort of, I don't know, what seems like slimy way to get me to open up an email, just to see what it is or whatever it is. But when it's really not relevant, as far as the subject line. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So there's a few things to unpack there. So first off, on the subject line, you have to send out something that's relevant and make sure that the subject line is relevant to the content that you're sending. And also having a small description. So for a subject line like Chick-fil-A, I mean, I think I would be curious to open it too, but I would definitely want to know a little bit more about why I want to open this email, right? And then as far as the content goes, it has to, like, for email, it has to have something of substance in order to open it. It's kind of like if you're getting a meal, it has to have like something on the plate in order for you to actually eat it. So you have to have something that is there that you'll that makes sense to you. It can't just be something that has like no relevance to the person that's receiving the content. That wouldn't really like be an effective marketing campaign at all.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I hope this person that is sending out these emails is listening, or these people that are sending out these emails are listening to you right now. The other thing they did, I just pulled up the email just so I could see it. The other thing they did is they wrote, "Hi, Mary. Just kidding. I know it's David." And then they wrote,
No way. That's hilarious.
I'm like,
oh my gosh.
So.
Well, sometimes that like that the subject line is the hardest part of the email to send. I mean, the copy can be good, but you're like staring at that email like, okay, I've got to come up with something that is relevant, of course, like you were saying, relevant to the problem, but is enough to catch the attention, because somebody like David is probably getting hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. And so, you want to catch the attention. So it's like, there are many times where I'm sitting here looking at an email and I think I spend more time staring at the subject line than I actually spent writing the copy about it.
Yeah, I think for subject lines, it's always good to test, and it's always good to jot down some themes of types of subject lines that you want to do. So, for example, maybe you want to do something serious versus funny, then there's like a theme there that maybe you can play off of on that content, based on like something serious versus something kind of funny and witty, that maybe you can go and see if that might work. And then based on the split test of the subject line, of the theme of being serious versus funny, you can take a look and see which one gets more of an open rate, and then test from there, which from the winner of whichever one wins, and then pick another theme and then see what else works.
Yep, pretty fun. So, email, we've got subject line, and we've got we've got Google and Outlook and all the email providers to contend with, like in terms of like deliverability. But with SMS marketing, there are no subject lines. And I mean, I suppose like on the really special text messages, there are like certain ways you can do things, but like your average text message doesn't have a subject line. And instead of the email providers that are trying to capture you into a spam box, it's the phone carriers. So it's a different ball game. What would be your top tips for SMS marketers out there, and making sure that they have great content and are ending up delivered?
Yeah, so I have been thinking and studying this for quite some time, because I get a lot of SMS texts myself, and they are always interesting to see just what kind of tests that they're running. I tend to like the more conversational side of SMS, because you're actually having a conversation with somebody on the other side, and it's a lot more genuine that way. So for example, with Fraction, the way that we're using SMS marketing, is just really just having a conversation with the end client and making sure they know that like we are reaching out to just see if they have any further questions, and just building out like relevant, thoughtful messages rather than thinking of it as a promotional tool. Your clients are always going to have questions, and that's the great time to use SMS if they provide a cell phone number to you.
Great point. And then you're sending it, person to person rather than application to person. So you'll be less likely probably to be spam filtered anyway, doing it that way. But anything else or anything more anyone wants to mention on text message marketing?
I was just going to say, I think that's also a good point from the perspective of, I think a lot of people, including myself, are worried about when they get sent a link in an SMS, because a lot of times it's a short URL and you don't know where it's going to lead you. And if it's, if it's going to, be some phishing site or something like that. So I think that using it as a tool for having a conversation is a really good idea. Making
Absolutely.
It more personable like that.
And just out of curiosity, do you have humans doing it, or do you guys use chatbots?
So we do both. We have some workflows set up so that we do some check-ins, but it's very minimal. Our approach is definitely, we want to be more conversational with the end client as much as possible. So while we have some workflow set up, we typically on our sales side will reach out as well via SMS, and just make sure to keep the conversation going.
That's a really great point. There's always this debate whether email marketing is dying and SMS marketing is taking over. So what would be your take on that? Email marketing, SMS marketing, you think you need them both, just different ways, different reasons?
Yeah. So I also want to mention that I'm a part of this really big Slack channel called Email Geeks, and we talk all day about email marketing and also SMS. We we always have this question come up at some point in time, every single, like, if not every single month, every other month. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think with email and SMS is still a very great way, one-on-one way to um, get the attention of the person, and you can do so much personalization with email marketing and also SMS that you just can't do with other media. So I don't think it's going away.
Absolutely. So all great points. And you mentioned a community. Is that a community that our viewers could get into somehow? Is it how would they go about getting in?
Yeah, so there's definitely it's actually, I think there's a LinkedIn for email geeks. I'll have to double check, but there's a lot of people that are within the email space that are that are there to talk about email all day and every day. So it's like 24/7.
Yeah, I know, at least internally, I'm always talking about Slack and how there are different marketers. I even found, media buyers, different groups that are in like chat room sort of formats, be it in Slack, WhatsApp, or even on I don't want to say the word Facebook, David, but on Facebook, there are all these different groups of marketers, and pockets of communities that just offer value. Like you were saying, you talk about email all day. So I know that's not our next topic, but paid digital advertising. And should we move into it?
Yeah, I think your mentioning of Facebook is a good segue into that, because some of the things we want to talk about is just what are the top channels to watch there. I mean, right? I mean, I think a lot of the social media advertising has taken a big hit lately. Facebook and Twitter, ad fraud, all these things are affecting paid advertising online. And so it'd be interesting to get your take on what channels that you've experimented with. What do you think has worked? And where do you think it's going? What's going to work in the future? I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, so I think the top channels to watch right now, I would definitely say TikTok is an interesting one because it captures a lot of Gen Z's eyeballs, if that's the target demographic that you're trying to reach. But I think like the bigger fish is actually going to be YouTube and YouTube Shorts, because YouTube captures the demographic of from like people like really young age groups of like 2 years old. My nephew like knows how to use YouTube to find things, shows that he wants to watch on his own. It's kind of interesting to watch. And you also have people that are like in their 70s and 80s on YouTube talking about their life and all else, and blogging. So I think like TikTok is an interesting one because it's just grown massively in the short amount of time. But the one that's going to be even larger, I think, is going to be YouTube in terms of like the paid advertising fronts. There's just so many different ways you can do advertising there with creator content, and then also with AdSense, people getting ad dollar revenues from there, and then a lot of different sponsorships on YouTube. I think that's definitely going to be one to watch.
Well, and I think you're right. I think we can increase using TikTok as a viable way, especially for paid advertising, when we see more of the B2B side get a little bit more entertaining. Because when I go to TikTok, the big thing about B2C advertising and marketing is it's very entertaining. It's very human. And there's an enjoyment factor to watching, whether it's the advertisements, the commercials, and whatnot. But even on TikTok, where you have the freedom to be silly and kind of relaxed, the B2B advertising is still very, I hate to use the word stuffy, but it's still very like professional and reserved. And so it's really missing, and many times, that human connection, that human element.
Yeah, that is, yeah, the genuineness of TikTok is definitely a good point there.
Josh, maybe we need your help, Josh. Let's put together a new TikTok for B2B. So it's just to be
I'm down. I'm
Biz
down
Talk,
to do this.
right? It's Biz Talk,
Happen.
right? And so now all our marketing team is going to have to start making videos that, you know, them dancing and singing about data. I guess. Jesse, you're the singer in the group, so we can have you sing
I'm
about
on
data.
TikTok.
Well,
I have content on TikTok that I don't put on LinkedIn, so there's a reason for everybody to go hop over to TikTok.
well, I'm just thinking, like, if you look at somebody like Todd Clouser, who is taking movie clips, like whether it's like Titanic or you know, A Few Good Men or something like that, and he's like, if this or that, and so he's taking these movie clips but inserting himself. And so, you know, you might have like in A Few Good Men, he's like, what do you want? He's like, well, I just want some lead gen. That's all I really want. And so, you know, he's making, like, he is in the B2B
You
space.
can't handle the lead gen.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, see, it's perfect, David.
Absolutely. No, it was a couple months ago. I was doing some keyword research, just looking at like in general, like what are people searching on Google? And one of the number one things was TikTok advertisements. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like just in terms of like everything that everybody's searching, TikTok advertisements is like one of those big things that people in the US were looking at. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to learn TikTok. So I play the piano, so I'm like, yeah, I'll just start doing piano and yoga swing and, you know, everything else, rapping. So yeah, TikTok, it's just like everyone's stage and it's a different kind of algorithm to understand. But I think you're right. It's like mostly Gen Z. But I do think there are other pockets in there as well. I'm a millennial, you know, I'm there. And I've been following other more, I would say, marketing type people who are putting out content about like, here's tips on like how to do LinkedIn posts, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me watch what they're saying. And so, you know, there's all types of different pockets of people on there, just like we were talking about, there's pockets of people on WhatsApp and Slack. And, you know, it's really just about finding your audience and where they are, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else on paid advertising, David, you want to get into?
No, I think we covered it. Move on to Josh.
Let's do it. Josh, take it away on tech stacks.
So, as I have recently transitioned into like the tech space, which sometimes I'm always hesitant to use like the word tech because there's this big fight going on right now about, are you actually in a technical role? Are you actually in tech? And so some people get really, mainly the software engineers, they get really offended. So I am like learning all sorts of crazy like tech stack stuff, and that is just insane. And so for you in your tech stack, what's your 5 favorite?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that comes to mind is really more about marketing automation, since that's been something that I've been looking at um, since 2014. Some of the favorite ones I can think of are HubSpot, because HubSpot can integrate with almost every single application out there. And it was like the early pioneer of doing that along with Zapier, to basically plug every single application in as much as possible. And Braze as well. I think Braze was very innovative at the beginning of its time, where it integrates between email, SMS, and also in-app notifications for mobile apps. So I thought that was very innovative. And
Braze?
Braze, yeah.
B-R-A-Z-E?
Yep. They used to be called Appboy.
Oh, you said what?
They used to be called Appboy, but they turned their name into Braze. I think that's a much better name. Rolls off the tongue a little bit more.
HubSpot, Zapier, Braze. Okay, who's your number 4?
I would say I would say Listrak as a marketing
Listrak?
automation for for e-commerce marketing. They are really, yeah, they're really good at integrating with e-commerce for different shopping cart experiences. So I I thoroughly enjoyed working with them while I was in the more of the e-commerce role, and yeah, they have really good customer service. So I gotta give them credit where it's due.
That's always
Um,
important.
Absolutely. And besides that, I think for data, I really like using like places like Tableau, Looker, Google Data Studio. I think those three are really great for data analytics. For uh, and then also for project management. Asana, Basecamp, and ClickUp are great in terms of like doing project management within your organization and outside. I think that's one thing that's certainly very overlooked when it comes to tech stacks, because that's the one thing that really binds your organization together. And I think especially working in a remote environment, is very key to having project management, a good project management tool to rely on.
Definitely. So I know most of those. The only ones I hadn't heard of before were Braze and Listrak. So I think I got Blaze tagged here. But Listrak, I don't know, maybe they're just not on LinkedIn, but maybe I'm spelling them wrong. Is it list, like a list? And then
Listrak. It might, yeah.
Trak. That's why. Now I found them. Thanks for that. I'm going to make that post here. So hopefully, I know at the end you mentioned quite a few and I didn't get all of them, but we definitely got more than 5. So thanks for, adding all that value to our users there. Definitely Asana is one I've used. It's pretty easy, similar to ClickUp. I think, ClickUp is becoming more popular. I hear about it more and more in terms of like a marketing project management tool. Even like sales teams, I think might be using ClickUp. Listrak, yeah, that's. But Zapier and Hubspot, you're absolutely right. Those are definitely 2 of my favorites as well. It just makes integrations and data flows and just like really any automation you need as a marketer easy from a user perspective. It's just like all code free. You're just setting up basic if-then statements to connect things. So yeah, those are all great points. Thanks for sharing those.
Absolutely.
So anything else on tech stacks? And do you guys want to make any comments on any of those?
No, it was all good.
All good stuff. So we have this last topic in here. David, you want to lead us off?
We do. So, and actually this probably ties into what you were talking about earlier, Olivia, about YouTube, because there's been a lot of news lately about TV viewers moving to CTV. There was an article recently about NBC actually taking away some prime time slots and moving some of that content to Peacock. And so we thought that was really interesting. It just shows sort of this movement towards CTV and online, streaming services. And so wanted to get your take on that, because, when it comes to advertising, that it's basically saying that there is a lot of advertisers, and the reason why they're doing this, right, is because they make their money off of advertisers, somebody like NBC or whatever. And so if they're moving content from linear TV to their CTV platform, then it really shows that a lot of the advertising that was being spent on TV before is being moved to online media. And so that's really interesting. And it sort of shows a pathway for more and more advertising online in different media, whether it be streaming or, YouTube or some other types of paid advertising.
Yeah, I think that a lot of viewers are now turning away from TV and looking more into, like, let's say, for example, Hulu, Netflix, and all of these other streaming platforms. So I think more eyeballs are going into CTV. The only exception I think would probably be when there's like sports season. when sports season kicks off, then more people are watching TV. And even then, I've heard more people talking about going on YouTube, YouTube TV to watch. So all of this inventory is definitely shifting. And I think there's less people watching TV now. There's more people watching everything else. And TV, while just think it's more of it's just been a environment with less viewership, less and less viewership as time goes on, just because there's so many different platforms to watch any of the entertainment that's out there.
Yeah, even sports too. I mean, look, like you said, YouTube, but Apple, cut a deal with Major League Baseball, right? So I think that you're going to see that trending more and more. And what else? Netflix has been rumored to be coming out with an ad-supported version, right? And so, I think that, we all have sort of seen this happening, right? We knew kind of this was happening, but it's becoming really obvious when the big TV players, are recognizing that, their dollars are moving online and they have to do the same.
Well, I was just going to say, and because we have Amazon, we have Netflix, and Amazon is kind of a pain in the rear end to watch because I don't have the paid service for it, and so we have to go through the ads through there. And so, but Netflix keeps I swear, every 6 months we're like, hey guys, sorry, we got to raise our rates again. And it is a very, very small amount. We're going up by $1.50, we're going up by $2, and you're like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal. But if you look back at the last 5 years, I'm like, man, I think I'm paying double by now. And so I'm almost to the point where I'm like, I wouldn't mind Netflix having some paid advertisements in there if it meant that I'm not paying as much for the service, honestly.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure that they have surveyed quite a bit of clients as well on whether or not the advertising experience is going to impact their usage. And I think with their crackdown on password sharing, they're going to have more viewers going into watching advertising as time goes on whenever they're rolling it out in other countries for password sharing.
That's a good point. It makes me think of something that David had said a ways back, which is he was talking about let's say I want to go on vacation somewhere. And so I'm researching about whether it's Colorado, whatever it may be. So I'm looking at ski gear. I'm looking at plane tickets, and then I go and watch TV rather than having the ad for McDonald's. Now all of a sudden advertising for ski gear pops up and going to Colorado and stuff. So this might be an interesting area to where, especially if they crack down on that password, so they can say, okay, this is David that's watching Netflix. This is what he was looking at previously. Now let's send him advertising that's applicable and relevant to what his interests are.
Yeah, those targeted ads are going to be worth so much more on a per impression basis than the generic ads you get on a regular TV program.
Yeah. I would imagine that Netflix, if they ever roll it out, they could do advertising on relevant cooking shows for cookware and kitchenware. That would be interesting to watch too, and see what the reactions are for that.
Absolutely. I was just going to ask, what do you guys think would be, your advice to advertisers who are trying to, understand all these changes and still put really relevant content in front of their actual audience?
Yeah, I think the challenge there is there's a lot of times advertisers are using programmatic platforms and they often don't know where their ads are showing. That's a big problem. And I think that's typically when you see the least value and the lowest performance, it's going to be because of that. And so I think in order to improve your performance, you need to make sure that whatever platform you're using is giving you that transparency so you know exactly where your ads are being shown. And gives you the ability to, pick and choose where you want those ads to be shown. I think that's the biggest challenge as far as making sure that you're getting performance when you're talking about, advertising in a programmatic manner.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think that for programmatic advertising, it's very crucial to have like an exclusion list of places that you may not want to advertise and aren't relevant to the people that are looking at the ad. So I don't think people that are people that are 65 and older, if to get a parenting like baby ad, I don't think that's going to be very effective. So having exclusions placed around those certain parameters and target personas is a definite like need on programmatic advertising too.
Yeah, another good point. Definitely.
Maybe they could run it. I'm thinking back to when there was a program that we used in the classroom, and so as the students logged in, it would give them a list of, what's your favorite TV shows? What are, out of these movies, what are your favorite? And so then it would base all the questions on the exams and the assignments around what the kids found very interesting. And so that might be kind of an interesting take on it, to where, you log into your account and then it pops up with, David, during lifestyle choices, skiing, hiking, boating, whatever it may be, what do you like? And so now you're kind of programming it so that it sends you what you like. Would be kind of interesting.
That's actually a really good point. It's something that the platforms could easily do. I'm thinking back to what you said about Amazon, and I was recently watching a show on Hulu, but I don't have Hulu, so I was watching it with the advertising version, and just it would have been really interesting to sort of test your theory in the sense that if I could tell them what kind of ads I wanted to see, what I would get, as opposed to the ads that I did get, which were honestly not that relevant.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Made it through our 4 topics, unless anyone else has anything else to add on TV viewers and moving to TV. And since we have 8 minutes, I thought maybe we could get to some of our frequently asked questions. So David and Olivia, what do you both think the future of ad audience building has in store for advertisers?
So for the advertisers, I think since we're shifting away from using pixels, like for example, the Facebook and iOS change last year, I think that there's going to be a lot of different ways that these platforms are going to be able to have basically the algorithm like tell us what who should be clicking into the ad. So for example, I know that Google Ads recently did a major update, a major change with the way that we are looking at the Google like headers and descriptions. You just add in like 15 and they choose it for you. They choose what the audience sees based on the target persona. And I think with audience ads, it's going to go in the same direction, where you'll probably add in like people that maybe are homeowners, people that are interested in X, Y, and Z, and then basically the algorithm will, based on the different people that are clicking, and based on the people that are clicking and interacting with your website, they're going to basically do all of this ranking for you. And I think that's what's going to happen in the next like decade or so.
Yeah, I think we're also starting to see, and I think we're going to see more of machine learning taking a role in helping to target advertising and building audiences. That's something that we're doing at BDEX, but I think that it's something that will continue to evolve to the point where it does it in real time, and learns what viewers are interested at any given moment, just like any other sort of algorithm. but doing it for advertising so that the advertising can be more customized to what you're doing at the moment. I think that's, there's a lot of talk about privacy and all this other stuff, but I still think that can be done effectively without necessarily needing to identify who the end consumer is. It's really just about understanding their journey online and then using that information to better serve them.
Absolutely. What do you think, Josh? Do you want to drill into one of your questions before I wrap things up here?
Yeah, I'll ask Olivia first, and then, it's been a while since we asked David this, and I'll see if his answer has changed. But Olivia, you've learned like a ton since you first stepped to this arena. And so, like, if you could take all your knowledge that you've gained and best practices and all the mistakes you've made and all the successes you've had and go back to like day one when you first started, what is one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Double check everything. And then after double checking everything, triple check everything. And then have somebody else check it. And then check it again before you press the send button or press the post button.
Measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
David, what about you? Because you've answered this question before, but sometimes we hear it often, and then you go, you know what? I've changed my mind. I think I would do this. What would your answer be for that?
That's funny because I don't remember what my answer was. Can you rewind real quick to like episode 3 or whenever that was? No, I don't remember, and you're right. I think that probably it's contextual in the sense that the way you're feeling at any given time, the answer could be different. So what would I tell myself? I think that the interesting thing that I would probably tell myself is just, I've always been one to go with my gut. And so I've always, done that. I think that it's important to go with your gut. That's one for sure. The other thing would just be, I think I would probably have read more in my early days of in business. So I've been an entrepreneur. That's all I've ever known is to be an entrepreneur. I left college and 6 months later I started a business. And I've read so much more in the last 10 years, like business related books, than I read in the first, 18 years of business. And so I would definitely tell myself to read a lot more because I learned so much, I think, so much more in the last 10 years. Everything that I learned in the early years of starting my businesses, I learned by making lots of mistakes, and that's great. Like, I think it's good to make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes. But I probably could have learned a lot more from other people's mistakes by reading. And I've done a lot of that in the last 10 years, which I hadn't done early on.
Okay, Jesse, I'm going to pick on you now. So same question to you. Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Oh, man. I wasn't expecting that, Josh.
I know.
I like it.
The number one piece of advice I would give myself would be to just relax and know that everything is going to be okay. And even if I do make mistakes, that means that I'm doing something good. And if I'm making people upset, it means I have a strong point of view. And none of those things are bad things. So just keep going and relax. It'll all be okay.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Josh, so how about you now?
Well,
he totally wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah. I was like laughing about it in my head. If this, I would go back and use my student loans and invest it in Netflix if I could go back and like give myself one piece of advice. But I would have spent way less time in college, honestly. And I think I would have, and I like honestly hate to say this because I've loved the career path I've gone through, but I think I would have done something completely different with my life, just have a different kind of adventure. I definitely would have been in Europe. I would have traveled a whole lot more, and kind of the same thing like Jesse said is like, you know what, quit stressing so much through life because everything in the end is going to be okay.
All right, that's our takeaway, folks. Don't be stressed. Everything will be okay.
All great advice. Thank you, everybody. Let's see if I can not fumble on the closing here now. So in closing, we would love to get input from listeners about BDEX's podcast. Also, are there any guests you would like to hear from? So please feel free to, tag them in the comments here. We would love to hear from you. This is a show for you. So let us know your feedback. And that's all we have. Thank you so much, everybody.
Awesome.
All
Thank you, Olivia, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. And I have an outro video here.